Today, everything about Ableton Racks. What are they? How can you use them? And how to set them up. Let's go. Okay, we are in Ableton, and the best way to explain a rack to you is to just make one, and then you can see what it does. I'll explain audio racks first. We also have instrument racks. I'll explain them after. So what I have here is a vocal.
Speak to my body when your heart goes boom.
A very not that great vocal, but it's just a little example. An easy way to show it is with a reverb. So let's take a reverb.
Speak to my body.
Now let's say I wanted to sidechain this reverb. You could do that with a compressor and a send and a return and make it complicated. But you can also just put this reverb in a rack and sidechain it within that rack. So it's all within the same channel. So you can just hit Command G for a group. Then you can see it made an audio effect rack. Command R, let's call that reverb. And then it created a chain. So here you can have multiple chains. It also says drop audio effects here. But we have our reverb already set up. Audio is going into this rack, into this reverb, which is now on 21% wet.
Speak to.
So now it's still exactly the same. So let's say I would put this on 100%. You can already guess you will only hear the reverb. And then let's say I wanted to mix this signal in. Then I could just right click, create chain, drop audio effects here, but I'll just drop nothing on it, which just means that this signal is coming in the rack, going through it, but it's playing parallel or next to that 100% reverb.
Speak to my body when you're.
So I'll call this dry, and then we can mix in the volume of this reverb.
Speak to my body when your heart goes boom. I want you.
So now we have basically a send within the channel.
Speak to my body when your heart goes boom.
Yeah, you can just imagine all the things you could do with it. If I wanted to sidechain this reverb right now, I could just put a compressor after the reverb. I'll put it on 0 dB so it's loud.
Speak to my body.
Then I could go into the sidechain view, click external, click vocal, turn down the threshold, how you would normally set up a sidechain compressor.
Speak to my body.
And then you can see it's just taking the source, the input, let me call that vocal, and it's being sidechained by the incoming signal.
Speak to my body. Speak to my body.
Now, so this is very easy to put on leads. You can sidechain anything, of course. Echoes, anything, endless. Any distortion you can put in here. Let's say I wanted to distort this vocal a bit, but I wanted to like add that as a little layer. So let me just take hard curve, distort. Let me just show you how it sounds on its own. And let's say we just wanted to mix that in.
Speak to my body when your heart goes boom. Speak to my body when your heart.
Now, and if you wanted to say, okay, I want to have that distorted signal on the side, then I can just put endless effects in this chain. So now I just took this Haas effect, which is creating like a stereo.
Speak to my body when your heart goes boom.
I could even put a reverb after this distorted signal.
Speak to my body when your heart goes boom. I want you.
So I hope that makes sense. I think that's pretty easy to understand. If you don't, then just rewatch this part again. Now that's the basic setup of a rack. Now another cool thing you can do is set up macros. And a macro is just a knob that you can link to stuff. So you just saw me adjust this volume right here of the chain. I could also link that to this button, for example. I can just click map, select this volume. Everything that's green is stuff that you can link. And then I just click map And here then you can see all the mapped stuff, macro mappings. This is going up until 6 dB, so this is the range. Then just hit map again, and now you can see that this knob is linked to this chain volume. Then we can Command R it, reverb, give it a nice color. For now, we'll just have one, so you can click this minus thing to delete the rest. And then you can close this up. And then we have a nice and clean chain.
Speak to my body when your heart goes boom. I want you, want you.
Endless possibilities that you can set up with this. Now, let me show you a rack that I use a lot and made myself. There's quite a lot of stuff going on, but see how this vocal sounds now.
Speak to my body when your heart goes boom.
So you can see all functions that you would use in a vocal chain and stuff I do a lot. I'm like, yeah, this has to go as fast as possible, and then I can always tweak it afterwards. So if I just open up this chain, you can see there's a lot of stuff in it. So here, for example, you see low cut, add air. Air with vocals is we mean like a nice sharp high end. And if you look at this EQ right here, this is just being automated. So that's all it's doing. So that's very easy. Remove mud, just like 200-300 hertz, and remove harsh. These are just like the obvious frequencies where you would usually cut that, and it almost always works. And then I can always put a little EQ after it, because this is just a workflow tool. Throw in a vocal, click my Stream Deck with the vocal chain. You know, it sounds cool, boom, carry on with the idea. You probably saw in the last build-up video that I usually work pretty fast. And then afterwards, I'll just take my time and fine-tune everything. And I think the most important thing is to keep in the flow of the idea and to keep the creative flow going. And then afterwards, you can spend 4 weeks on the mix down if you want.
Speak to my body.
So this is like the EQ part, and then here I have some effects.
Speak to my body when your heart goes boom.
So like a stereo effect, reverb.
Speak to my body when your heart.
Little echo.
Speak to my body. Speak to.
And then here I made one for the reverb time.
Speak to my body when your heart.
Which I don't really touch that often. So this is one example of a chain that I use all the time. I have a lot more of them. Okay, another one I use a lot is my punch reverb. So here I have a kick that is dry. I usually make my kicks without the punch reverb in it. A lot of people put that already in the kick, but then I sometimes change out the punch and then I still hear that tone of the reverb in the tail, and I don't like that, so I just make them like this. So just dry without any reverb. Then again on my Stream Deck, I click punch reverb. And boom, there is my reverb. Now I'll just go into this quickly. What I did, as you can see, I threw it on the whole kick. So you might be thinking like, how does that work? Well, because of this rack feature in Ableton. So what I did is I put an LFO tool, which lets through only the punch. So it chops it off after. Then 100% wet reverb, a little saturator, corrective EQ, utility, which is just gaining. So let's ignore that. And then another LFO tool that's just fading in. So if I would solo this, then you only have the verb. Then this LFO curve is just linked, so you can tweak it a bit for the right flow. And then the cool part, and mostly the reason why I do it, is let's say I change my punch. You can hear, of course, this input is changing, so the reverb is changing with it. And then again, that's a very quick way to keep going. So you just throw in your kick. If you have a Stream Deck, you hit punch reverb, boom, it's there. And then again, in the end, you can always record this verb solo it in the chain, and then just record it once and then put it on an audio track so it's separate. So that's another rack that is very useful, and I'm using it all the time. Now let me show you one more trick to make like a rack for buildups, for example. So let's say we have this sound. So just the detuned saw. Let me throw on some effects that I would use. Maybe a phaser. And then utility maybe. This is already grouped, so let me just group it like that. Throw that in there as well. Throw that in there as well. And we'll call this build rack. And then we're just gonna link some stuff. So let's link this frequency, this resonance. So you can see I can link multiple things to one button. Let's link the dry wet. Let's link the dry wet of the phaser, and then let's link the width of the utility. Then we just have to fine tune this a bit. I want this to turn this knob, and then you can already see what it will do. And then I want to like build up this sound so it's like a bit like an endless smile. So this definitely doesn't have to go all the way up. So let's have this go to like 500 hertz maybe. So now you can see it will stop at 500 hertz. I often just put it in the end position and then just tweak these things like that. That phaser, the reverb should be like maybe 70. The phaser also. And then we'll have you can also go from higher to low. So we want to have the width decrease. So that has to go maybe to 50. And now let's see what it does. So let's have this go a bit higher, a bit more reverb. Let's see what it does. Even higher. You can also copy things and they will stay linked, as you can see. And then I will just adjust that second one a bit less. So, very basic example how you could set that up. Of course, you can make this go a lot crazier. Maybe we should also add a little auto pan. So link that amount to the button and then the rate as well. And then amount should just go from 0 to 100. And then rate should go maybe like that. See? That's a cool way to demonstrate what you could do. Then you can just clone this up, call this bring the madness knob. And then give it a nice spicy color. That's just to explain it. I already have racks like that in the previous episode. You could download them in the description. Some wash racks to wash out a track. Now let me just show you a bit about instrument racks. So let's say we have a serum. Normally you would have a serum like this. So Command G to group it. Then here you can see serum. And then you already can see drop an instrument or sample here. So let's say I want to add a spire. Then I can just drag that spire in there. And now, let me just take a sine. Now I'm playing both synths. So the spire and the serum. Now if I would just duplicate, Command D, this serum, I would call that saw. Okay, for demonstration, let's keep it simple. And then in the other serum, let's make a square, for example. Just like a typical, your typical noisy, no, not reverb, a little bit of EQ, a little OTT on top. And now, we have these two playing together. And then we can just throw in our reverb rack. EQ this a bit. This is another rack you can see that I use a lot. So that way you can just duplicate it again. Maybe make another sound with this one. Maybe you wanted to add that one. Maybe you want this one higher. And that way you can really make a cool top lead. So you can just call this top lead. You can even group things or make racks within the rack. So now again, I can group these. So I selected those three and then hit Command G again. So now they are in this chain. So this is the collection of those three. And then now I could just drag effects behind them. So now you can see I dragged a rack within this rack. The overview can get lost a bit if you have like a crazy rack going on. But in this case, it's still pretty clear to see. So I have my main rack, which is the whole thing. Within that rack, there's this instrument rack, and this is behind that rack. So this is on all three things. Hope that makes sense. A really cool thing you can do is now just drag this in your user library by clicking it there and then just drag it in. And then you can just search for HD top lead, which is this one. So it already finds it. And then when I'm in a track, I could make a bunch of these type of leads and then I can just drag them in. And then it's loading my rack right there with everything already set up. So you can imagine me with my crazy workflow. I have a bunch of stuff pre-made. I have racks for everything. Like if I would go in here, let me take cinematic strings. You can see it loads up this whole chain. And I just loaded that up with one click. So all set up already with just the reverb linked. And I could do a whole video regarding the Stream Deck and what kind of things I set up already. So for now, this was the introduction into racks, audio effects, racks, and instrument racks. I hope it was useful and I hope it was easy to understand. I tried to keep it very basic. But of course, if you want to have a more in-depth, more nerdy video, then please let me know, because we can go really crazy with this kind of stuff. For now, I hope you enjoyed. Check out byteaudioworks.com and I'll see you guys next time. Peace.